everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of the ManageEngine Insights podcast. I'm Priyanka Roy, an enterprise evangelist at ManageEngine, and today we are going to be talking about moving beyond the buzzwords hype, the reality of diversity and inclusion in cybersecurity. Organizations have been grappling with diversity and inclusion challenges since time immemorial. The technology sector in particular has a glaring gender diversity problem that just cannot be ignored any longer. While traditional employee pipelines haven't been able to produce enough STEM employees to fill the supply-demand gap, the vast underrepresentation of women in tech roles have further hindered the effectiveness of the industry. Nowhere is the gender diversity gap in technology more apparent than in cybersecurity. Despite a growing interest in cybersecurity, women still only represent 25% of the industry's workforce. This could be in part due to organizations not treating the hiring process equally, as many women feel that men are more often hired based on mere potential, while the same consideration is not always extended to women. To increase the number of women in global workforce, they must have access to continuous training, professional development, career advancement, as well as equal pay. To discuss the various challenges that women face in the tech industry, the benefits that women can offer to the sector, and how to forge the path towards equal representation, I'm delighted to be joined by Jane Frankland, cybersecurity expert, best-selling author, and a prominent keynote speaker. Jane is an award-winning leader and a women's activist. Having spent over 23 years in the cybersecurity industry, she has become one of the top influencers in the world and has been named as an UNESCO Trailblazing Women in Tech. Originally building her global hacking firm and also having served as an executive at some of the world's well-known consultancies, she has spent the last decade leading her next venture, New Start. There, she follows her passion of positively influencing women to join and remain in cybersecurity. Jane's Insecurity movement, which follows on from her best-selling book, has a community of over 1,000 members. And in the past 2 years, Jane has enabled more than 235 women to receive a women's scholarship. Jane is currently writing her third book and has also just launched her unifying women's platform, The Source. Hi, Jane. It's a pleasure to have you here with us today.
Hi, Priyanka. It's so good to be here.
Thank you so much for making time for us. And I am really looking forward to having a great discussion with you.
Yeah, me too. It's wonderful to be able to start the new year by doing something like this. So this is an exciting topic. We've got so much planned for this year, and I can't wait to get into the questions.
Me too. So, I think on that note, we'll just dive straight into the questions. And the first question that we have for you today is, how women are grossly underrepresented in the tech and engineering fields. I mean, you don't need me to tell you that.
Yeah.
I'm sure you are more well aware of the ground reality than I am. So what I wanted to understand, and I think what our audience would like to start with is, what are some of the biggest challenges that women face in these fields currently?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would say there are numerous challenges. So the first challenge that we have as an industry is awareness of what we do. So we are doing a much better job of that by getting out into industry and letting them know how diverse that field cybersecurity is, because it is. And a lot of, if we're talking about women in this instance, have their own preconceptions as to exactly what it is. So we need to eliminate those, just do a good job of explaining what it is. And I know that we're getting better at that, which is absolutely fantastic. But following on from that, the next kind of challenge that really the women have and companies have is the hiring aspect. So it is really making that as easy and inviting as possible. And I see so much hiring practices that could be done much better. So that could be because they're using technology or they're using processes that actually are biased. So the more we can get our eyes on the hiring issue, the more women we're going to get into this industry. And it's not often what I hear is, well, there aren't the women out there, the women don't want to do this, et cetera, et cetera. So again, putting the blame on women, and that is so not the case. Women want to come into cyber. They're capable of doing the multitude of jobs that we have in the industry. So we need to adjust our hiring processes so that they are fit for all people. And when we get it right for women, we make it right for all people. So it really is debiasing as much as possible the hiring process, and then making sure that the onboarding process is good, so that women aren't just hired because they're meeting a gender target, and they are set up for success when they are on board. And then developing women as much as men, or any gender for that matter, along the way. So we're creating and investing in top talent and the best workforce. As a leader, as someone who's leading a team, it's just that you want to develop and invest in your team. So that needs to be done for all people. But there is an issue with equity and equality that we need to tackle. So that means women have to up level, they have to banish those limiting beliefs that we all have as human beings, but particularly as women, because we are subjected to so much of the patriarchy propaganda. So we need to sort some of those things out in order to really help the situation.
That's a great answer, Jane. And I can't help but ask a small follow-up question to that. When you say that organizations need to kind of get their hiring processes right, and right now what happens many times is that the blame is shifted on to women. Either because their hiring processes are not, designed correctly, or, for various other reasons. Do you think it is because organizations do not want to see the problem, the root cause, or they're just that blissfully ignorant?
I think it is a bit of both. Absolutely. So there can be a choosing to ignore the situation, and it's so easy to blame, isn't it? And what really most organizations, hiring managers aren't really interested in getting more women into their organizations. They want the best people. So there is a belief that there is a meritocracy. So a lot of the time they are not really walking the talk. So there's a lot of talking the talk. There's a lot of pressure on organizations to get more women into technology and cybersecurity and meet these diversity, inclusion and diversity targets for various reasons. But there is both I don't believe it's going on. I believe we have a meritocracy here. I believe it's all working. So I don't want to put my attention onto that, or I don't want to invest in it. I don't want to open that can of worms. Maybe I know, maybe I think that there is, maybe I'm concerned that there is, but I don't want to invest in it and open that can of worms. So I do think there is some of that. And I also think there is an arrogance. No, we're perfect. We're doing it right. This is not the issue. There is another issue. And then coupled with that lack of care, well, they don't really care what gender someone is. I just need this job doing, which I understand as a business person. I understand the importance of like speed and delivery and getting these jobs done. And there is some resentment from hiring managers. Well, why do I have to do this? This is just another pressure for me when I'm already pressurized. The job of security as a leader is pressurized enough. So this is just another hurdle you're asking me to jump over. So there is a lot of that going on, and this is why it's really building that understanding, building the win. So what's in it for me? Like, why should I know I've got this requirement, but why should I really give it my attention? Why should I really care? Why should I make sure that this is happening? So it's selling it as much as anything to those who are hiring, and then enabling it through good practices, all the types of practices that the company, the organization has got an appetite for or is able to do, because some are just so big that they can't tackle some of the things that would actually be really beneficial to them.
Right. I think it's wonderful how you kind of, shift the perspective and ask us to kind of view the problem from both the angles, both from, an applicant's perspective of an applicant who's a woman, and also from the hiring manager's perspective. So I think our next question kind of really addresses that the issue that you were mentioning that hiring managers might often have in their head, that what's in it for me, and what benefits do I get out of it. So the second question is, despite the severe underrepresentation that we just spoke about, women have still been shining in the tech and cybersecurity field. So according to you, what are the biggest benefits and advantages that women bring to the table?
So, well, we know the benefits that women bring to business. They've been well documented for ages. So things like we stay on budget much more compared to homogenous teams. There is more profit and things like that. So and that's all really good stuff, and we need that to occur. So many benefits there. But for me, looking at cyber, and this is one of the things that isn't spoken about that much, but certainly I focus on in my book, Insecurity, is the risk side. Women see risk in a different way to men. Women are different to men, and that's great because diversity is good. In some industries, I originally came from art and design, you had to be different. You didn't really work if you're all the same. So, but obviously as human beings, we try hard to be the same. We don't like change. We don't particularly like change in cyber and things like that. But women see risk in a different way to men. And there've been hundreds and hundreds of research papers that have documented all of that. And I refer to many of those in the book with links and things like that. But that's the big benefit to women coming into cyber. They see risk in a different way to men. Women are very accurate in terms of risk management. So we are different. We see risk in a different way. We're highly attuned to it. We can spot anomalies really easily. We've got high social intelligence. We're emotionally intelligent, high social intelligence. All these things add to what we can bring to an industry. And then, of course, if we have got hackers who are out there profiling us, then they are, and we know that they're doing this, they're writing code for men because the majority of the industry is male. So when we have more women in, if there has been an attack that has been written purely for a male receiver, then a woman may be able to spot that and be highly attuned to it. So there are lots of different reasons why women are, it's worth us ensuring that more women come into the industry. We've got better decision making that occurs when we have gender and cultural diversity, so we perform better anyway. But from the risk aspect, it's important. And the other thing also that comes from research, so nothing that I say comes from just me thinking this or whatever, it's actually being documented as data. Women are very capable of remaining calm during times of turbulence. And because we have cyber attacks and crises that occur regularly, it's the new normal, then when we have women on the team, then we've got that added advantage. So there are many advantages to why it's beneficial to bring women into this field. And one of the most exciting bits of research that I'm referring to at the moment, because there is limited research that has been done specifically related to women and risk, is something that the Financial Conduct Authority is actually promoting. And it's research done by Cass Business School. And they looked at gender and they looked at diversity in when it came to risk management in a financial organization. And for me, this is really interesting because I thought that diversity, full diversity, would actually would be better than gender. But the research that they found actually suggests that it's gender that actually does better than full diversity. It is significant that we get that gender aspect right as opposed to full diversity, because when we do that, they had less misconduct fines in the bank, and they had better risk management, and all of those things equated to a saving of about $7.48 million US. So that was for me like, okay, well, it's not just diversity, full diversity, which many of us would imagine and is often cited. It's actually specific to gender when we're looking at risk management.
That's wonderful. And this is very interesting to me because, I had never thought that this main thing that stood out to me from your answer was that women perceive and approach risk differently.
Yeah.
So if I may ask, how does this fact translate to actual skills on the field? If you could just throw some light on that, how does it really help when it's somebody who's working day in, day out in the cybersecurity domain? How does it translate?
It could be spotting those anomalies. So it's just like something isn't right. So the pattern, something isn't right. It could be social intelligence. So if there's a social engineering attack that's going on, it's just like, I'm not going to fall for that one because something's not quite right. I don't know what it is, but you get that build up of social intelligence. And it's not that women are better than men or any of that. It's just that we're different. So our spidey tingly might be going off, it's just like something's not quite right, and I can't put my finger on what it is, or maybe they
know it's something,
but they know that something isn't right, or maybe they can put their finger on, no, that's not right, and I've spotted that because of my experience, my gender, my intuition. A lot of the time we'll call it intuition, and again, it's not that men have intuition, but we have typically strong intuition. Maybe we're even more allowed to have that. Maybe we've got more freedom than men. I don't know. What I do know is that a lot of over years and years of persecution, because let's face it, women have been persecuted, and women still are persecuted in horrific ways all over the world. But a lot of our intuition and our senses have been squashed and denied us. So a lot of the time we've lived in fear, or we've not been allowed to express those. We know it's going on. We know something isn't right, but we're made to feel like a fool for expressing that when actually we're right. So our intuition is very strong. We see risk in a different way. We've got high in social and emotional intelligence. So spotting anomalies, spotting social engineering attacks can be really good. And then if we have high pressure situations, then if we can remain calm during those, then we can communicate, and we can
handle the crisis better.
Handle it. Perhaps also we can do that fast and with not all of the information that is to hand for us. So those are some of the ways. So in leadership, absolutely. Women are often told, or it's cited that women communicate better than men. Women are good communicators. Women are better at the soft skills and things like that. Well, maybe we are. Maybe we are. Whatever the case, if we are, then we have an opportunity there to be able to interact with the business, interact with the tech teams, translate, which is a requirement that is needed. And definitely in leadership, you need to be able to communicate effectively to all different stakeholders.
Wonderful. I can't help but, vigorously nod my head to every point that you've made. And thank you for, kind of taking the time to explain that further. So moving on to our next question, what I would like to kind of ask you next is, in your opinion, what are the main things that women look for in the tech industry, or look for from the tech industry?
So we always want to feel safe and protected. So we want to be developed as well. So it's just like, if we're going to move to a company, then we want to know that there is opportunity there, that we're safe and protected and there's opportunity there. In otherwise, we'll be developed. So we're looking, and that is, we've got to work harder as organizations when women are transferring from one organization to another. It's just like, well, why should I bother? Why should I? There's a risk, because we see risk in a different way. It's just like, well, there's a risk there. What if it doesn't? What if it doesn't work out? What if it's not what they say it is? So we're always assessing risk, and we're highly attuned to that. So that's why companies have to work much harder to bring on a woman. And there's some data out there that says actually you've got to do that 40%. It takes longer, 40% longer to actually hire a woman than a man. So when you're in need of talent, it's just like, well, I need it now. I can't wait, 40% extra. So you have to work harder. So women need to feel safe and protected, and that there is opportunity for them so that they can progress. So those are some of the things that you need to show show to a woman the progression. That's why often women will look for, well, show me examples. I need to see signals. Where are the signals that you promote women, that there is opportunity for women here, that I am going to be valued as a person, and I'm not going to be hampered, I'm not going to be discriminated against because of my gender. I'm going to be paid fairly, and I'm going to be promoted fairly. So these are some of the things that we need to showcase as organizations to women, and make sure that those signals are really clear. They are welcome, they are going to be developed, and we are working hard to reduce bias and discrimination. We're not about talking the talk, we walk the talk.
Right. So I think to make this process easier, for organizations to be ready to take these steps to make it easier for women in order to make them feel safer and more protected, organizations need to understand what's in it for them. So that brings us to our next question, which is, how can cybersecurity world, so how can the industry benefit from creating a gender balance in organizations?
Well, they're going to benefit by the results. So there's going to be better problem solving. There's going to be better innovation. There may be better, there may be faster projects that actually happen faster. Maybe the communication is better, or maybe there is less aggro between two alpha males. So in some environments, it's just like alpha male standing off against alpha male. It's just that the project isn't progressing as fast as it should, or in the timescales. In comes in non-threatening woman to actually project manage or alleviate that. So, and that's not just me saying that and creating that. I've heard that from men in the industry. I mean, actually in my book, there's a story all to do with that in a banking environment where you had a male CISO, and he described that situation. It's great because projects happen faster. There is less aggro because you don't have this standoff. So innovation, projects happening faster or in their timescales, less aggro. Sometimes there can be more aggro, but there can be less aggro. There can be more fun and happiness, because let's face it, when we're happy as a workforce, we perform. So, and when you're working with a single sex, it's just like, who really wants to work in a single sex environment? It's not normal. We have more fun when there's a mix, when there's diversity. So better innovation. When we've got better innovation, we make more money. So it's all to do with, I always lead with money. Yes, I want fairness. Yes, I want less discrimination or no discrimination. But it is all about the bottom line. And that's the only way we are ever going to make progress, like faster progress, is when we actually sell the financial benefits. What is in me financially? So money drives action, and we're all in business. So when this has to come from the top down, we need to be able to communicate the benefits to all the different stakeholders, and money is a strong driver. So it's not the only driver. Speed is also important. Lower risk is also important. Happiness is important. But those are some of the benefits that companies can get when they actually engineer this.
When it comes to pay, I'm so sorry, please go on.
Yeah, proactively and strategically, because that's what it needs. Engineering, design, proactivity, strategy.
Agreed. What I was going to say is, when it comes to pay, many times organizations might seem very progressive, and it might seem like there is no problem gender equity wise on the surface, but you really see the disparity when it comes to pay. A male employee on the same level might be getting paid much higher than a female employee, even they are doing the same amount of work. So it might not be something that you see, on the surface. It might not be something you experience, every day, but it's in these subtle ways that these things come up.
It so is. It can be, and I've seen some horrific, I've heard some horrific stories from from women in my network, and sometimes it could be to the extent of $100,000 US. That's the pay disparity that it could be. He's earning 100K more than me, and I'm actually doing the same job. I'm a peer. Why is that? And then when you add to that, so there can be a pay disparity. But what's even more insulting is when you have a pay disparity and you know that as a woman, but then you are asked to be involved in a gender campaign. So that's just insulting. Please will you lead this gender diversity campaign so that we can attract more women into our company? And by the way, we're not actually paying you. It's not pay parity, and you know that. So do they. So that's insulting, and that is a fast way to really annoy a woman and for women to leave your organization when you don't have that pay parity and they find out. And then you might be also asking them to be a face of a women in campaign. That goes on all the time, and it's very hard for a woman to communicate that, express it, because obviously she can't until she leaves that organization, but it doesn't make you feel good. The other thing that is done to women is often there can be a negotiation over, you can't have the pay and the title, or you can have the pay but not the title, so it's, you can't have the pay parity and the title for the job that you're doing. It's a decision, which one is it, one or the other. You can't have both. So often what we find is the women might have the title, the leadership title, or whatever title it is, but they're not being paid, so there isn't the pay parity there. Or they have the pay but they don't have the title. So but they're doing the job. They're doing the job of the pay and the title, but they can't have both. So that is very, very common as well.
I know, and that's so unfair. I mean, why should you have to choose?
Well, this is it. It's discriminatory, and that,
I know,
that practice needs to go. It needs to go.
Of course.
And a lot of I turn my attention to not necessarily the hiring managers. It could be HR. That is that's the duty of care, isn't that? Duty of care. And we have laws around this as well, but it's a duty of care. How can you do that? Agree. So it comes down to values, and are you walking the talk, or are you just promoting values that your organization might have so well, with nice glossy brochures, beautiful websites, incredibly well paid and competent branding teams, etc., marketing teams, etc., but you're not actually doing it. You're not walking the talk.
Which is, I think, the perfect foreshadowing for my next question, which is, how you mentioned that it's very insulting when you're not even getting paid equal to your male counterparts, but you're asked to lead a gender equality campaign. So how can organizations go about achieving gender equity in a genuine way, not just because they want to claim a certain number in their marketing collaterals, while also empowering the existing female employees?
Yeah, so well, it comes down to really being honest, doesn't it? It comes down to actually that having that appetite. Do you actually want to walk the talk and take an honest look at what's going on, and how fully do you want to do that? So you can still make great progress by investing a certain amount in it and do a much better job, or you can go, it all depends on budget and things like that. How far do you want to go with this? How much of a look do you want to take? And that comes down to, well, how much budget is there for it? Or we do a little bit now and then we progress, so it's staged progress. So it comes down to the leadership team actually really driving this, because it's not going to happen otherwise. Taking an honest look and then looking at, well, what are our values and where can we demonstrate that, and is that really being done, or is that being covered up? And it's really looking at what the root problems are in an organization. So when we might have a remit, we need more women in cyber, it's just like, well, great, let's do a discovery session. This is what my company will do. Like, let's do it. One of the things they'll do, not always, but sometimes, have a look and let's really find out what's going on in your organization. What are the good practices? What are the bad practices? What is your ambition? And let's put a strategic plan together so that you can actually implement that. And so it's taking a good look, an honest look, and facing up to the reality, and then having the courage to make sure that you are leading, and in some cases being pioneers, because I think really that's the stage that we're at. We're at the pioneering stage. It's like it's time to do to be courageous, to be a pioneer, and to really lead the change that we are saying we want to see. And it comes down to building the equity and things like that. It comes down to, one, being more aware, so really understanding what's going on, the biases, without judgment. So without blame or judgment, it's just like, let's just look at it and kind of see and be aware, and then let's look at, well, how can, without making anyone wrong, how can we address these things? And really, I come back to it, whilst I lead with women, so many of the practices that I recommend, yes, some might be purely for women, but often they are actually good practices for all people. So really, in order for culture to change, which we need it to, culture comes from leadership. So we need to get leadership. We need to improve our leadership. So often ignoring the hiring practices and some of those systems and processes that are going on there. Often after that, if we can actually sort the leadership out and get their investment in it and tidy up some of their practices that are detrimental to all people, then we can actually improve the situation. So for me, leadership is really a big element of the work that I do.
And I think leadership issues and challenges can be, effectively solved when there is equal representation in the leadership roles as well.
Absolutely. So it's building the visibility. So being about that. So as a woman, make sure that you are understanding how to amplify your voice, to demonstrate your expertise, not just through qualifications, because they really serve another purpose. They're not going to stop guys from thinking that you're not technical if you are, and so on. They can be helpful, but they're not going to stop that. So it really comes back to you demonstrating, as a woman, you demonstrating visibly that you have the experience, you have got the skills, the competence, and you have got a voice, and building your values so that more people can see this and experience this. And you have to be really proactive and strategic when you're doing that. It's something that is not being done nearly as much as it should. And that's why I really do focus a lot on the visibility aspect. Often we're told as women, women need more confidence. Well, women don't need more confidence. Women actually just need a better environment, a safer environment, psychological safety. When you make it safer for us, you will see change in behavior. So it's not that we need to be taking on more risk. Women need to build their risk. There's risk, and there's stepping outside of your comfort zone, and they're quite different. And then there's making an environment psychologically safe is one of the number one things you can do for all performance, for all people. So they're huge benefits for all of these things. And often we're told women don't have a voice. Women do have a voice, unless a woman is mute. Women have voices, but they might need help in amplifying those voices, or they might need help in making sure that our voices are heard. So that could be, you lot are hugging, the mic. I'm going to focus on Priyanka or Jane, or I want to hear from you. So as a leader, you can enable that without shaming or without putting pressure on. You can just make it normal. So there's a lot that can be done without putting all of the blame on women. Of course, we need to change, and that's what my women's platform is there for, the source. It's really about removing as many limiting beliefs as we can, bringing in all the tools and resources that you need in order to to enable you to fulfill your potential in the way that you want and in line with your timescales. So it's just like, whatever you want, you can do. The world is your oyster. And that's my big message for women. It's just like, you can do.
I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, because it's
Yeah.
like, so often we're told, well, we can't do this or whatever. We can't do this. There aren't enough women role
Right.
models. So you've got to be it to see it. It's just like, no, we don't. You don't need to be it to
Right.
see it. We don't need them. Role models are brilliant for so many reasons. But we don't need a woman to be doing that job for us to be doing it. Of course we can.
Right.
Of course we can take inspiration from all human beings, because essentially we're all souls. We're all spirits.
Perfect. I love the way that you've put that. And, I think you're doing great work on that front. Which brings me to my next question, which is about leadership. And I think you've already answered that in part. But is there any other additional advice that you would give to women who want to move to leadership roles in cybersecurity?
Yes, come and join my platform. Come and join me, because there are loads and loads of tools in the platform, in the source. But it's not just tools. When I refer to tools, it could also be communities. So it's just like,
Right.
yes, there are things that you can do. There are some great training programs out there, but it's not purely about the training programs. It is about the networks. It is about finding mentors. Sometimes it's about adding to that by getting sponsors. So
Right.
the difference between a mentor and a sponsor is a sponsor will be more actively working for you, promoting you as an ambassador, or
Right.
facilitating, you need to come and work on that project, and I'm going to introduce you to the project lead or person, whatever. But they are going to be actively invested in you and enabling you to achieve that. A mentor will give you, here's what I did. So they'll help you.
Right.
And some mentoring is a combination of coaching and mentoring, but essentially it will be, here's what I would recommend, here's what I did, this might be helpful to you. And when you mentor, there's always a reverse mentoring process going on. It's just like the mentor learns from their mentee, the mentor, so it's two way, it's not one way. So that's always that happens. So it's very beneficial. So you mentoring, sponsoring, coaching is also good. Training programs are good. And then having a network of different types of networks, actually. So networks, because networks do different things. So you might need a network of female leaders, for example. If you want to become one, it's just say you want to tap into that. Well, what did you do? Or you might need a network that has nothing to do with gender, because as human beings, we have a lot, irrespective of gender, to offer. So you're going to get as much from a guy, or someone who's in between genders, as you would from a woman. So they can fulfill different things. So build your network strategically and look at, well, what do I want from a network? Who are the types of people who I want to meet? So think carefully about that. So all of those things, training programs, some great ones out there. I can make the recommendations if people come and network with me. Sponsors, mentors, but don't feel overfaced with it. You don't have to do all of those things at once. Just do a bit of a stock take. Ask yourself what it is that you want. Look at where you are, where you may be, where there may be a gap. So it's just like, well, I don't actually have a network. I don't actually know many women leaders, or I don't know many leaders. So maybe I need to look for specific women leaders and also leaders in general. So do a bit of a stock take, a bit of a gap analysis to see where you need to focus your attention, and also commit to a time scale. It's just like, if you have a time scale, an ambition and intention, then it drives you. And often we are motivated by targets. We're set targets in organizations. So culturally, it's something that we're very used to, even through education as well. So set the intention, set it free, have a good look at where you need to focus your attention, and then get into activity, and then literally get on with it, hand it over.
Perfect. Those are great suggestions. And I think there are some great pieces of advice in there, Jane, and I'm sure our listeners will benefit a lot from those suggestions. And that kind of brings us to the last question we have today, which is, I think we have discussed this in parts over our conversation, but just to kind of wrap it up, according to you, what are the biggest factors that can address diversity and equality and inclusion challenges in the workplace?
So the biggest factors, can you give me an example of that?
So, what factors will help organizations effectively bring about a parity in their gender representation? Like, if you have to list the top 3 things that organizations need to do, or, the top 3 things they need to look at to, achieve this.
Well, hopefully they're already aware of why. So it's just like, if they're not, it's just like, understand why, like what's in it for you, what is in it for you, what's in it for your stakeholders. So think beyond that, depending on where you sit, as a leader or not. It's just like, well, why should I bother? What's in it for me? What does this give? So build the awareness and understand the benefits for you and for your organization, because it has to work both ways. What's in it for me personally and what's in it for my organization. So when you understand those, then you can take action on what you're going to do about it. And that can vary depending on your level in an organization. So we are all responsible. So even though we might not be a leader, so if you've got an entry-level person or a consultant coming in or an analyst, it doesn't mean to say that you have to sit there and just accept and be dependent. You are powerless. There's actually a lot that you can do to move the needle on this challenge. And when the higher up you go, then there's more you can do. So you can use your influence and your power to actually make the change, so to create that transformation and to make sure that this is actually happening and that it's not all words, it's not all talk. It's just like, well, where's the proof? So you can put in place so many different things. So it does depend on where you sit in an organization, your level as to what you can do. But the first thing is like, build that awareness, understand really what the ROI is, the return on your investment, your time investment, your energy investment, your financial investment is. And then when you've got that clear, then you can look at, well, it could be another discovery. Well, what can I do? Now I understand it, and I think that I understand it. What can I actually do? I don't know what I can do. So say if I was a guy listening to this, it could be like, I'm on board. I really want to support this. I might have my own daughters and I want fairness in the world for my daughters, which is often the case. We have loads of fantastic allies. But it could be that, well, I can't join that group, or I don't feel included in that group, or I just don't know what to do. Maybe I'm going to say the wrong thing. So it's then another discovery. And again, I'm here for allies who need further advice. There are going to be some things that I'm doing this year that will really help from an ally perspective. But it could involve another discovery or a bit of research. So digging, well, where can I do that? How can I contribute? Because I'm up for this mission. But what's really important when we're talking to men and some of our allies is that no one feels threatened. So we still can have these specific groups. So in some ways we can still be divided, but very whole and very up for the mission. And it's not that we're making anyone wrong, but sometimes we just have to come together, say, as women, and just go, we need this women's group. And it's not that we don't love you guys, it's not that we don't value you guys. We've got some women's things to sort out that are unique to us. And so I'm a big believer in having these groups without shaming or blaming, and being in full support of one another. But there's a lot of work that we can do. So there's more discovery and more research and more awareness building and making us all included in the mission, because this is a humanitarian mission. It's a humanitarian. So we must not make anyone feel threatened or less than. There is enough. We work in an industry that is buoyant. There is so much work, so much abundance. There is enough for everyone. We need everyone on board. So no one must feel fearful or threatened or blamed or anything like that. We need to really take care when we are putting these things in place, these processes, these technologies, building these cultures, so that everybody feels safe and protected and valued and can contribute.
I love the point that you made towards the end when you say that it's a humanitarian cause, because, you know, that was what I was kind of going to end with, that it's not just an organizational problem. It's not something that you can solely put the blame on, you know, organizations or narrow-mindedness. It's a societal issue. It's a humanitarian issue, like you mentioned, and, you know, there are many factors which comes into play. I mean, I know for the sake of our discussion today, we are looking at it from, you know, the point of view of organizations and what can they do to address the issue. But I think all of our listeners will also be cognizant of the fact that it goes beyond that. It goes beyond the boundaries of an organization. It, in fact, goes beyond the boundary of the industry as well.
Absolutely. And that's why I say, I talk about the planet. So for me, and I talk about the world. So I believe that the world will be safer, happier, and more prosperous when we get more women into male-dominated industries like cybersecurity. So for me, it's about the world, it's about the planet, it's a humanitarian problem. And what I'm aiming for is that happiness, you know, so it's just like happier, more prosperous in terms of the world, in terms of the planet. I mean, imagine that. Just imagine that. I mean, even like some of the figures from getting the gender parity right or getting gender right. I mean, literally, I saw from a company the other day, and they were saying that if we got, this was related to cybersecurity, if we got gender parity in cyber, it would add 30 billion US dollars to their economy, 12 billion to the UK. If we got pay parity right in both of those two economies, the US and the UK, we could add another 12 billion US dollars to the US, just with gender pay parity in cyber, and another 4 billion in the UK. That's two economies. So when we build up economies, think about poverty, what we can do. So it's in our interests. And it's
of course,
ripple effect, isn't it? I mean, it's a domino effect, a ripple effect. It's like all of these little changes can be so beneficial to our planet, our world. You know, so it's much bigger than ours. It is a humanitarian challenge, and it's beneficial to us.
And I think it kind of comes down to education and awareness, right? I mean, you kept stressing on that point throughout our conversation, that you start with the why, and, you know, the how comes later. So the awareness.
Absolutely. And sometimes you just have to hand the how over, so that the how takes care of itself. You know, it's sometimes that is, but we have to start with why. I mean, whenever I say that phrase, it's like Simon Sinek, isn't it? It's like you've got to start with why, and then the other things just fall into place. You know, magic can occur, but you have to start with why.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for this enlightening discussion today, Jane. I learned a lot, and I'm sure our listeners are going to as well. And this brings us to an end of our podcast today. And it was a great experience hearing you explain the various challenges that women face, and, you know, how organizations can go about addressing these challenges. And I'm hoping we can catch up soon over, you know, another session for ManageEngine Insights. And I look forward to having you on this show once again.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me, and thanks for asking such amazing questions. So it's been so enjoyable, and I will speak to you really soon.
Same here.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much, Jane.